You're listening to the Sanditon Chronicles, where we talk all things Sanditon and Sanditon adjacent. Come along with us as we dissect all of your favorite characters, scenes, and dialogue. We have so much to tell you.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Sanditon Chronicles. I'm Maureen.
I'm Janice.
And
good to see you.
Today this is our last recording before we dip into episode recaps for season 3. And
so excited.
Yes, it sort of felt like this was never going to come.
Yeah, it was a long time.
I'm a person who I binge watch things. Okay. So these weekly, we're going to give you these one day at a week. It drives me crazy. Like I need the next installment, and then waiting a year between them. That's no bueno for me. I don't enjoy that process. So
yeah. And on top of that, you had other challenges. So
yes, but it is finally upon us. So today we just wanted to make this kind of a little lighthearted thing. We petitioned our group, our Sanditon Chronicles group on Facebook, to see if they had any questions or things that they wanted us to answer here or talk about. But Janice and I are also going to talk about the theories that we have and what we want to see happen. And we've got some fun things that we're going to do on the episode today. So we're just going to dig right in.
Before we get too far into what we think is going to happen in season 3, I have a couple reflections I want to make about season 2.
Yes, please.
Because I was, rewatching, especially the last episode. I mean, I rewatched, but I was rewatching the episode. And also I had read somewhere that recently that originally they were going to have Tom Weston be Colburn and Ben Lloyd Hughes be Tom Weston Jones and Ben Lloyd Hughes be Lennox.
No.
And I thought, okay. And so this was my thought process. Maybe they had originally decided that because Ben is really good on a horse and, he's tall and stately. And then, but I think they decided to go the other way because after they brought the actress who plays Leonora on, and she has like clearly blue eyes, then they really needed Tom Weston to be her supposed father.
Okay.
Because he has very blue eyes. They have very similar eyes. And so if nothing else, I'm sure there were other factors, but that would be a good reason for them to have switched them around. I mean, I think they did the switch for early on in the process before either one got really into their characters, if what I read was true. But anyway, I thought it was very interesting.
And I think maybe it's because we've seen them in their roles. I can't imagine the reversal.
Right.
It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. And I know that Justin Young and the producer, one of the other producers, had worked with him on Dixonian, so they knew him.
Okay.
And they knew he would make a good leading man kind of character, so I'm really glad. I mean, it obviously worked out the way it should.
And we've talked about this too, about how Tom Weston Jones plays a really good villain. And although he not wholly bad in Sanditon,
no,
it's only like 50% bad. Yeah. I can see that better.
He makes a good villain, but he also makes a good guy. When he did Copper, he was the good guy.
I don't think I saw that.
Oh, it's a series, a British series. Well, it's not British. Okay. It's actually, I think it is. Well, anyway, it takes place in New York. So I don't know who produced it. I don't remember that, but I've seen it on BritBox, which is probably why I think that it's British, But anyway, so but when I was watching them on that last scene, and Leonora with these blue eyes, and then him with the blue eyes. Oh, yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And if she'd had brown eyes, would it have switched too? No.
And you can't, it's not like, I can't imagine another Leonora either. So it's not like they would make that switch to, not right eye color, whatever. That is, I think that's such, if that is true, I think that's a smart way to cast.
So what happened was, I read this article that was also focused on Ben Lloyd Hughes, And it talked about the fact that, I mean, Justin Young in the beginning of this article talks about the fact that when, even before Theo James opted out, when they were thinking about the possibility of a second season, they were planning on having the military come in. The Redcoats were going to be part of it because of, you know, how much that they appear in all the Austen books. I mean, pretty much all of
Yes.
them. And so they were planning that. And so when Theo James opted out, they immediately thought of bringing in. So one of their first characters that they were created was Colonel Lennox, a war hero who is meant to evoke the likes of Pride and Prejudice's Mr. Wickham and Sense and Sensibility's Colonel Brandon. And so that's when they immediately, I think they really did. What he said was that in the other article is that they had thought of Tom Weston Jones from the beginning, and I think it was but they were just thinking of him as their lead character to begin with,
Yeah.
and that's how he was originally sort of. They had him in mind for Colburn, but then switched him to Lennox, or who knows how it happened. But so then, but they knew. This other article talks about the fact that Ben had auditioned for two characters in the first series and wasn't chosen, but they knew him because he had applied before. He
Yeah.
had auditioned. And one more side note, it was interesting that Tom Weston Jones was familiar with Sanditon because his old drama school mate Theo James was in it. So they were in drama school together.
Oh,
Isn't that interesting?
yes.
And so but Ben, they brought in, they quickly turned to him because they thought he would be really good as this brooding character, which obviously turned out to be the case. And he said that he admitted he took inspiration for Colburn from some iconic non-Austen characters. I think there was a kind of tiny dash of Rochester in there a little bit. He said, referring to Charlotte Bronte's brooding hero, and maybe a tiny dash of Captain Von Trapp. Trap. And there's a couple knowing winks to Captain Von Trapp that I put into the season. So interesting, huh?
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
I like hearing their background stuff.
Yeah, to know how things came about. And of course, he had appeared with Theo James in the Divergent series.
Which is, because I like Ben Lloyd Hughes. I like how he plays his characters. I like how he's very, unfortunately, I think I've only seen him in two things. I can't remember seeing him in anything else, but the two things he's been a lead in that I've seen is Divergent and Sanditon. So he's got like this, it's so unique. I think he's got like this softness that he puts into his characters and the tone and tenor of his voice. But they're two completely opposite characters. Like his character in Divergent was like a goofy, sort of lighthearted, and his character in Sanditon, obviously not goofy, lighthearted, but that same softness is there. So he carries this. It's a really unique perspective that he plays, I think, and I need to watch more of what he's in.
He's they're saying here that he was in Malevolent, which I don't really remember him in that, but I've seen it. I'll have to. And then in a show called Industry, which I haven't paid any attention to, so I'll have to check it out too. It's always interesting to watch these actors in other series, I think. Absolutely. But one of the other funny things they talk about here is that Lloyd Hughes said, in my opinion, Colburn learns way more from Charlotte than Charlotte does from Colburn. And I think the same is probably true of my relationship with Rose. Rose was a fantastic sparring partner, both as a character, but also as an actor who's incredibly hardworking. She thoroughly read all the scripts and was so clued in everything, and is hugely opinionated on what the scenes should be doing, how they could be better. And then he joked that he would piss Williams off by admitting he'd never seen the first season of Sanditon. And initially, he did it out of petulance. But then once he got the part, he decided he didn't want to watch it because he didn't want to be influenced about who Charlotte was and what her character was before he played the part in season 3, which is neat. And I think we had discussed that a little bit before, but
yeah,
it's fun to read about it. I think.
I agree. I think that it's important to know these little aspects behind the character that the actor is putting into it, because I think it adds another level, and we're all hungry for more levels of Sanditon. So it just makes sense that, we'd get into it. It's like my penchant for knowing the backstory, for desiring, not knowing the backstory, for desiring the backstory. I think they're interesting.
Even if we make it up.
Yes. If I have to, I will.
So I really would love it if you can find a way to interview both of those men. It would be, and I was trying to find out if, especially I was looking at Tom Weston Jones to see if he had anything going on right now, and I'm not seeing it. That doesn't mean he doesn't, but
yeah, I would love to.
It'd be fun to hear their perspectives.
I would love to interview everyone from every one of the seasons, even the people who didn't return. Like, I still want to interview Leo Suter.
Yeah. Well, he is a very busy man.
I know
they're filming. He might be down your list just because of availability.
Well, I mean, season 1, people who haven't returned are down on my list just because they're no longer in a part of Sanditon and they don't really have much to offer. But like, I still think it'd be cool to talk to him at some point down the line. And even Ruth Kearney, like, I'd love to talk with her down the line.
Yeah.
He doesn't really do many interviews, but he's still one who I would like to talk to. But I feel like he probably would not interview anyone about Sanditon because the community kind of turned on him. I feel like that's a hard pass.
Well, he has a very strong, faithful group that, if they don't care about anything else. So
I mean, if an actor does a good job, and that's really why we loved him so much as Sidney, because he did a great job, and he
that's right.
made us invested in the character. He made us feel affection and care for this character. So I don't get the whole boycott all of his things. Why? Then you're going to miss out a whole bunch of great opportunities, because he's obviously a good actor and good at what he does. Why would you boycott that just because he had other obligations? I don't. But, I get people are mad at the storyline because they're so involved. And I think the wait did something to them where, no, we finally get it back, so now there's hope. And then it's like, no, just kidding, not hope.
Yeah, that's right. They're so invested in what they wanted to see happen.
Exactly. And we had years to think about how this story was going to play out in our heads.
Yeah.
We're a little entitled when we don't get what we want.
Yeah, that's right. You're right about that.
All right. So we are going to, we're going to take a little quiz, Janice and I. So this is not something we've done here before, but I thought it would be fun since it's
available for people on PBS if they want to take it.
Yes, there are some. This is where I'm getting it from. If you are not subscribed to the PBS Masterpiece newsletter, I would do that, because that's where all the official Sanditon stuff comes through, and it's really I've enjoyed getting those emails. So this is right from the Sanditon PBS Masterpiece. That's a mouthful. Website. It's the ultimate Sanditon quiz. All right, so we're gonna jump right in. Charlotte Haywood is first invited to Sanditon after a chance encounter with Tom and Mary Parker.
Yeah.
Not even gonna give the other options there. Correct. Ooh, shocking. Didn't know. During their season 1 picnic, Miss Lamb and Otis Molyneux borrow a carriage, picnic rug, rowboat, or tethered horse. It's a rowboat.
Rowboat. Yep.
I was a little nervous that I was going to get some things wrong because it's been a while since I did rewatch.
Yeah, no, you won't get anything wrong, I don't think.
Whom is Lord Babington referring to when he tells his friends she's the wittiest woman I've ever met? It's Esther.
Esther, of course, Esther.
Because your favorite character. She is the wittiest woman ever.
Yeah, and I the one thing I hated about, well, there's several things I hated about season 2 was that they had her so drugged up. She wasn't as witty, although she was still pretty witty, even so. And of course, just how Sir Edward was in that season. But anyway.
Yeah, and Babington wasn't there for her to play off of.
Yeah.
Next question. As Lady Denham appears to lay dying at the end of season 1, who locates her will? Clara did, but before that.
Yep, that's right. Clara did.
All right. What is
Which
the
makes
name?
sense. She'd been living in that house. She ought to
Yeah.
know.
And she is a survivor, and she's always making plans for a plan B, C, D, E. So she's obviously going to have that thought of.
And very observant.
What is the name of Alexander Colburn's horse? Is it? Oh, this one I
Hannibal.
remember. Okay, that was my
Hannibal.
guess, but I wasn't sure. I was not sure about that. That
It is
correct.
Hannibal. Yes. Mostly because I always think of Hannibal in the movie, you know, that was
Mhm.
about the
Hannibal
serial
Lecter.
killer. Yes, and I can't stand that movie. I never will watch it again.
I've never actually seen Silence of the Lambs
Be glad.
for that reason.
Yeah, don't
those
watch
things aren't
it.
my bag.
That I love that actor, but he was incredibly creepy in that, and I'm not into that.
No, I don't like that. Like I like documentaries of crimes because it's the psychology behind it. I don't like where people make up the crimes. That's not. I don't need to see how
Well, we
depraved you are
don't,
without being depraved.
and we hope there wasn't somebody like that.
No.
Anyway,
All right. Next question: who refuses to join Sanditon's sugar boycott? Lady Denham.
of course,
She doesn't do what anybody tells her to do.
no.
Allison Haywood and Captain Fraser bond over this poet, Cowper. Right?
Yep,
Oh,
that's
you
right.
didn't say anything. I was like, oh, is that wrong?
No, it's Cowper. It is Cowper. You got it.
At Lady Denham's outdoor garden party, guests compete at archery.
Yes. Although,
But they do also do croquet.
they did croquet too, but not cricket. They did croquet, but it was the competition was archery. Yeah.
They played croquet, but it wasn't that some could see. So I think that question could trip some people up because
Yeah,
even though it's
especially
not a
because of what-
competition, there is a winner.
Yes, especially because of if you've watched Bridgerton and the
That's true.
croquet in there.
That's true.
Anyway.
The way my family used to play croquet, it was competitive.
Yeah.
Alexander Colburn's caring housekeeper is Mrs. Whitley or Wheatley. I mean,
Wheatley. Yeah, Wheatley. Mhm.
I love
We
her.
love her.
I hope we get to see, like, I would love to chat with her too. I hope we get to see a lot
Yeah.
more of her in season 3.
She would be hugely fun to chat with.
Yes. She kind of takes over Esther's wit in season 2. I feel like she's got some
Mhm.
one-liners that are like, oh, we're going to get along just fine. I like you.
Yeah, yeah. No, she's great.
What did Edward
agree.
Denham use to poison Esther? Laudanum.
Yep.
Okay, this is easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's easy. I told you.
Alexander Colburn gives Charlotte this flower. It's a cornflower.
Yep.
Oh, well, that was
Or
it.
a
That was the whole
bachelor,
twist.
also known as a bachelor button, which I've
You're-
liked for years.
I think they're so pretty. Even that crayon, the color cornflower. I love
Yeah.
that color.
And actually, my bridesmaids' dress were periwinkle, but they weren't too
Oh.
far from that color.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So we are a Sanditon success story. You too can be a Sanditon success story if you just go to Masterpiece and take this quiz. It says, well done. You know so much about this developing seaside resort. We do. It's kind of our job. You could be one of Tom Parker's investors. I don't know that sounds like a fun time to go into business with Tom Parker. I don't think I would enjoy that.
Yeah, no, I don't either. Well,
What-
maybe it's getting better, but
I'll go into business with Mary Parker. How about that?
yeah.
Why
Or with
not?
Charlotte.
Why not share those stellar results with another Sanditon fan? After all, you've earned bragging rights. I'm sharing it with you all.
Yeah.
We are Sanditon success story. There you go. So head on
Okay.
over to Masterpiece and look at some of their bonus footage and their extras and things like that. Now we are going to turn it over to our social media. We posed a question to our Twitter and our Instagram and our Facebook to see if you had any questions or theories or anything you wanted us to talk about. And as I was going, I don't know how I missed this a while back, but it was on March 11th. So not that long ago. But
No.
someone replied to us on Twitter, on our Twitter account, which, by the way, is the.Sanditon. I think, right? That's what our Twitter handle is.
It's Chronicles, isn't it Chronicles the? Well, whatever.
Sanditon the is what it is. That's our start of our email. Sanditon the on Twitter. Sorry. But she said it's Stephanie Fan de Bien. Oh, it's going to cut off. De Bien Valence. So she says, glad to have you back. I can't wait to see your analysis of the series on your YouTube channel again. We're bringing that back. Glad to have you. I have a feeling that the story between Edward and Augusta will make Maureen cringe. Yes.
Yep,
Yes,
absolutely.
it will. I think that's a
It's making
fantastic
me
prediction.
cringe.
Should make
Yes,
all of us cringe, right? I mean,
it should. And I, it's like I really want to see, thinking of things that I really want to see happen in this series is this season is I really want to see him receive his comeuppance.
yes,
And however
please.
that happens, I'm ready for it.
And I don't like it's
I'd love to see him reform, but I really don't think that's going to happen.
that ship has sailed for me. It just
Mhm.
you can't do, and this is probably mean, but do what you will to Clara, don't touch Esther.
Right,
You
right.
touched Esther,
Well,
you crossed a line.
yeah, Clara sort of set herself up for that, but
That's exactly it. And I think for me, I was going back and I haven't gone back and listened, but I was kind of like reflecting on, because this is actually March 12th marked 2 years that we've been doing this podcast.
oh,
So
really? Wow.
yeah, because I started it.
Which was your birthday?
Exactly. I started on my birthday. It was, it might've been March 13th. My very first episode was an interview with Ron Jarvis.
Oh,
And
yeah,
so
that was
that
good.
was, yeah. And that was, I remember the day of my birthday, my husband took me out and he took the day off and our kids were in school and he's like, let's go get you some clothes. I was like, I need clothes for an interview. I'm interviewing someone tomorrow. And it was the first time I'd ever interviewed anybody ever that was like celebrity status. And I mean, celebrities don't really freak me out, but still it was intense. And I remember when we were arranging the time, he said, how about this time? And I looked, I'm like, that's 4:00 my time in the morning. I will make this work. I'll set alarms. I'll get up. I'll do it. And I got another email from him saying, I'm really sorry about that. I just realized what time that was for you. We're not going to do it that early. Let's pick a different time. But I remember setting on my alarms and being so nervous and setting that up. And so we've been here for 2 years with you guys. And I just think you all for coming along with us. And this is, I binge watched it. Like, I think I started watching Sanditon when episode 6 or 7 had just aired. So I got to watch all of them in quick succession, except for like the last
Oh,
two.
really?
Yeah, because
Really?
our PBS station, it didn't, I think that's why season 1 didn't do so great, because there was barely any promotion anywhere. I didn't even know it was a thing until I
Oh, I
happened to
knew.
turn it on.
I knew it was coming. Our station did quite a bit of promotion. And so I set it to record and all that kind of stuff, but it was yeah, and even the second time they played it, I still wasn't clued into the fact that there wasn't going to be a second season
Oh, really?
supposedly. And that's when I started looking around. So when are they going to do a second season?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I started that immediately because I remember I had a friend of mine, she and I went to college together. We were sweet mates and we both loved Jane Austen. Like in college, what we did for fun is we would turn on Pride and Prejudice or Sense and Sensibility and we would narrate it while the people were like, that's what we did for fun. And on a whim, we're like, let's go to London. And so we did, just on a whim, went to London for a week. And so when I found out this was a thing, I immediately messaged her, was like, did you know about this? We had to watch this. So we watched it together. And I remember, because I was so used to just, okay, next one. And when episode 8 finished, I went to hit next and it was like, that's the end. Wait, what do you mean that's the end? And I was asking everybody I could think of, there's another episode coming out, right? Like there's an episode 9 coming. It's like, no, that's it. It's all done. And that's when I started hyperactively checking for season 2. And that was the whole reason I started the podcast, was because I found out there wasn't going to be a season 2 and I was mad.
And found out about the sisterhood, huh?
Actually, I didn't hear about them until after I decided to start the podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
oh,
it was in my research for the pod, because I had to talk to someone about it. And that was when the idea for the podcast came out. And then I started researching and found them. So yeah, so it's been 2 years since we've been doing this podcast. And I thank you guys for coming along with us and sticking it out and being as obsessed as Janice and I are with this show. I appreciate that. All right. So we put on our Facebook page, we asked the same question: theories you want us to talk about, things you want us to discuss. Tessa Ewens, I'm sorry if I butchered your last name, Ewens maybe. She says, do you think Charlotte would marry? I think to have it be a Jane Austen trope, there is going to end with a happily ever after. Although I personally think a happily ever after would be her marrying Colburn. However, there's a whole new, it's not Jane Austen anymore. So it could be that her happily ever after is finding her own independence. I certainly hope that's not it. I certainly hope we see her marry Alexander. And I feel like that's where they're going to go with it, because I think the majority of people who watch the show watch it because their love of Jane Austen, and that's where it came from. So they're going to want to see that.
So there's one scene in the previews where she's closing these two doors that I can't identify.
That made me
And
nervous.
so I'm thinking that it's going to be a combination of her having some independence, but finally getting together with Ben Lloyd Hughes. And I don't know if we'll see a wedding. I don't really care, but so that they will be marrying.
Yeah.
Maybe not in our vision, but
and with like an agreement to, hey, we're going to be married.
Yeah.
So a proposal and an acceptance, I guess. I made that sound way too business-like. Now, someone else, and I was looking this up, and because we kept calling Samuel Coburn younger than Alexander. And then someone had commented on our YouTube and said he's older. But I was looking it up right before this, and I didn't find any definitive thing that said he's older or younger.
I don't think we know.
No.
For sure. He looks like an older person in the previews we've seen, but we don't know. And the whole reason why we would think he might be younger is because he didn't inherit the estate, which is what would normally have happened. So unless there's a different estate he inherited, or he just didn't want to inherit it, and then he might be an older son, but that's what makes us think that that he's younger. Exactly. So we'll find out.
And often it's the second sons who have to go into a profession, and that would be military, the clergy, the law, and he's a lawyer. So also, I mean, in real life, the actor is older than Ben Lloyd Hughes. I think I read by 5 years, maybe 7 years. So, I mean, he is older in real life, but I think all signs from going off of that time period would indicate that he is younger just based off the professions. And there wasn't really a reason to turn away from an inheritance of an estate to go be a lawyer. There's not really, I mean, maybe some really free thinker who doesn't want to be held down or bound. Maybe he would say, no, I don't want this, but it wasn't exactly a common thing for a first son to have that reaction to inheriting an estate.
It is entirely possible that he and his father were in such disagreement that he decided, I'm not taking anything from you, his father, and I'm going to just make it on my own. And he went out and became an attorney. That's possible.
Or his father disinherited him.
Which also would explain why Ben was pretty young when he came into possession of the estate.
Ooh, that could be a fun storyline, because we were wondering that. So that could be something.
Yeah. So,
and that was the question: is Samuel older or younger? If he's older, why did Alexander inherit? That would be why. Yeah. There's only a couple reasons really why he wouldn't have inherited. It would be he rejected or he was disinherited.
Right.
That's really the only reason he wouldn't have it. Catherine Begley says, I think she's going off the assumption that Otis is coming back because of the letter we see in the preview where it says love O, the other things that we talked about in last week's episode. But she says, what role will Otis's return play in Georgiana's life journey?
I don't know.
Catherine says he appears in the background of a Spanish advert for season 3.
Really?
Huh.
That's interesting.
I did not know that.
Wow.
I don't think it's fair that they get more advertisements than we do. Yes, we get to watch it sooner, but I want to see these.
Wow, that is interesting. Well, it would be fun to have him come back regardless.
And we were theorizing he was back anyway because of that hand we see with the letter and the hand we see grab it. So that was kind of the assumption we were running off of.
Well, so here is, so in these questions that are in this one article I was talking about, one of the questions was, do we learn anything more from Antigua? Is there any more news from Antigua? And it's not inconceivable that Otis, because he went to sea, we know this, he could have gone to Antigua or one of the islands and found and ran across Georgiana's mother. It's possible.
Or even as he was, because he went there sort of, we were left so open-ended on season 1 with so many things. One of them was him, because he left to make himself a better man but also to recoup the money. He needed to start living a different life to get away from what he was doing. But I think part of the reason he left was also to prove to Georgiana and kind of restore her faith in him. And I can see it conceivable that while he was off to sea, maybe he ran into Sydney, and Sydney, knowing who Otis was and understanding what he does through Charlotte's eyes, that he would have enlisted Otis to help him find this information. And Otis could have found it.
Although you would think maybe he would mention that in the letter if he knew he was dying, but who knows? Who knows? But it's conceivable. It would be fun if he came back into the series.
I would like it. I've always wanted him back. I was actually a little sad we didn't see him in season 2.
Right. But I have no idea what he was involved with career-wise.
Exactly. I think that was the thing. It's 2 years later and everyone has other projects. But Elaine Hunter on our Facebook page says he popped up this week in a bunch of spoilers, including he wrote the note that G tosses in the fireplace in preview, and he is actually featured in the Spain Sanditon poster.
He is?
I'm going to have to look that up. I actually went back and watched season 1 sections with Otis because I did not remember a lot other than I was mad at him for putting Charlotte and Georgiana in danger. His real story upon second review is different. I thought, remember G told Lockhart all about Otis, including his full name. Does Lockhart enlist Otis to help his cause, and does Otis flip the table? Gotta think writers brought Otis back for Georgiana for Happily Ever After. That would be my perfect Happily Ever After, is Otis and Georgiana.
For her. That would be, yeah.
And she says, next question, in season 1 and 2, there were a couple of motifs: carriage accident, a sickness, a death. Will this repeat, and with whom?
So I wonder how we see a copy of the Spanish poster for
I'm going to look it up right
Sanditon. Huh?
I'm going to look it up right now.
Okay, so you want me to keep talking?
Yeah, go. Do you have another question from your thing?
Yeah, one of them was will Georgiana find her mother's, which is kind of right in line with what we're talking about. We know that the papers revealed that Georgiana's mother, who she thought was dead and had died in childbirth, was actually alive. So it will be very interesting to see how she gets any information about that, if they shoot any more scenes in Antigua. And if this is so interesting, if Otis is involved, it would be really, really awesome, I think, as you were just saying. And yeah, I'm really interested to know how that's going to go about.
He features rather prominently in the season 3 poster.
Really?
Yeah. So now I'm going to share my screen with all of you. There he is.
Wow.
Right there. Like he's not even like in the background. Like he's.
Well, do we know for sure? I mean, I'd have to see a little bit bigger to be convinced it's him and not someone else.
That's Otis. That's
it
J.U.
is.
James.
It is. And he looks so much more handsome even.
He does. And he looks, I mean, he always dressed well.
Mm-hmm.
But he looks good. Like it looks like he might be doing well for himself. Okay.
Wow.
I'm excited.
Yeah, that is very exciting.
I also really like being proven right. So I mean, there's that aspect a little bit.
No, not you.
So Catherine says, what role will Otis's return play in Georgiana's life journey? I think that he could very possibly and should be her happily ever after, because of the reason is I don't want to see someone who A, we don't really know, B, who we don't have really a connection with, be introduced in Georgiana's life as her happily ever after. I like that Otis was the one who truly loved her. Yes, he did a bad thing, but he also sort of accidentally fell into that bad thing.
Right, that's right. I mean, he had some responsibility in that, what happened to her, for sure. But it's a lot like Charlotte said, neither of us meant for anything to happen to her. And yet it did, as Sydney says, and yet it did.
Yeah. And I think he truly loved Georgiana, though. I think that he loved her before he knew she had money. I think he loved her through her struggles. I think he is one who could truly sympathize and empathize with what her struggles were and who she is as a human being and what she desires to do. And I think they have similar enough mindsets where they will work. And also, I mean, even though he's an advocate for, what is it called? The Sons of Africa was right. That was,
yes, right.
Was part of, he still is that little more lighthearted version of, I can't think of the right term. I'm thinking advocate's not the right word. Activist. Jeez.
Activist.
Louise. He is an activist, but he's also got this lighthearted, silly side to him that Georgiana desperately needs because everything in her life has been so heavy and
playful is what you're looking for. Yes. Playful side.
But he's light, and Georgiana, everything she's experienced has been heavy and almost depressing and dark. And she's been steeped in this, no one sees me of value, but I have value. And Otis brings that out in her. He lets her know that she's valuable beyond her money. And so that's why for me, happily ever after for Georgiana would be Otis. Even though
and on top of that, I think she probably has already forgiven him as we've watched her look at that picture of him several times. But I do think that if he somehow brought her news about her mother, that would be doubly wonderful.
Yeah. Well, I think knowing how Georgiana is, I think she may have forgiven him because she loves him. But I think that though she's forgiven him, I don't think she's ready to accept him back because I think she's going to be like, nope, you hurt me now. We're all done. Doesn't matter if I've forgiven you. Doesn't matter if I love you. We're done because you did this to me. And I think that's kind of her tendency.
Especially since it depends on how he comes back into her life and how long it's been. If it had happened like right away, it would have been, no go.
Yeah.
But
I'm excited for that turn, man. I'm really excited for it.
I don't think it'll happen at the beginning of the season.
I kind of want it to drag out to the end.
Or part way anyway. So we get more information about her mother and that search and all that.
Yeah, I'd like to see them work together because they still have to heal from those things. I mean, when he left, things were not resolved.
Right.
They both left hurt and broken. So we need to see them working together on something. And I think finding her mother and going through this process, which I think Otis will know more about because I think that's how they're going to tie him in. I think that we'll see them build it. And that makes the synopsis for episode 6 make way more sense.
Yeah, I have to go back and read it again, but yeah. So it'll also be interesting, of course. I mean, it's easy to guess that Samuel is going to defend Georgiana in court against Lockhart. Yes. And it would be interesting to see if maybe Otis shows up during that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And honestly, like that scene that we're shown in the preview where Samuel's in court, obviously he's got the wig on, and then we see Georgiana sitting there. It almost felt like there was an animosity to the way Georgiana looked at Samuel. And like he looked at her like he was sorry. So I don't think I think it makes sense.
I think they're cutting it so it misleads you. I think she's looking that way at Lockhart.
Yeah. And so I think it makes sense that Samuel defender. I think that there's also a small possibility he's defending Lockhart.
I don't think so.
I mean, he can't be a good guy and defend Lockhart is the thing.
Right.
And we're getting the impression that Samuel's a good guy, especially if he starts with Lady Susan. He's going to be a decent human being.
Yeah, I don't think he's defending Lockhart. I think Lockhart he's the one suing. Mm-hmm. So he's the one, he may not even have an attorney because he's after money. It's not like he has it.
Yeah.
He probably thinks this is English society. They will definitely see that I'm right because I'm white,
know? Yeah, that's true. Elaine also asks, she asks 2 questions. She asks a bunch of them, but these 2 are, what do you think we will discover about the Colburn family history? And are Lady Susan and Samuel a couple? I don't think Lady Susan and Samuel are a couple because I think Lady Susan values her independence. But I did see in the short scenes we saw them together. I remember saying this on last week's episode of, are we going to get a love story with Lady Susan? Because but it's because there was chemistry between the 2 of them on that race on the beach. That was the scene where I was like, oh, okay, this could be a thing. But
and at the very least, she will they'll have a lot of fun together, I think,
Yes.
that's
And I think
obvious.
that's the main point.
So, in the IBDM has her listed, but only for one episode in season 3 so far.
I feel like she had more than one outfit in the trailer.
I'm
so
just
I feel
telling
like
you
that's
what's listed on that site, which means not a lot.
Yeah, I used to depend so heavily on IMDb for this stuff, and I realized through Sanditon, can't do that.
No, not till it's over, not till everything's out.
Yes.
Then I think you can, once that we've seen all the episodes.
She was another one I was sad about not being in season 2, because she was one of the ones who kind of broke the news that there was going to be a season 2 before anybody else did.
And accidentally.
Yes. So I was expecting her. I was sad that we didn't see her in season 2, because I just expected from that, well, certainly they wouldn't tell her if she's not going to be in it.
And then it might be because they asked her,
Mm-hmm.
Well, and see, because they were shooting both seasons back to back.
Exactly. So I think they had it all planned out.
Yeah. For them, the distinction when they were hiring everybody wasn't as broad as it is for us seeing it.
Exactly. Right? Yes. And as far as what do you think we'll discover about the Colborn family history? I think that, I certainly hope that we get some background on the Colborn parents of what their situation is. Certainly we're going to know if Samuel was younger or older. So, I mean, that's something we're going to figure out. But right. I would like to know their relation to the relationship with their parents, specifically their father, because clearly his dad was a drunk. And clearly his dad wasn't great. Their dad wasn't great. So I'd really like to find out. It doesn't even have to be sorted. I was about to call it sorted. It doesn't have to be. But I'd really like to find out that relational tie, because I feel like that's going to play a huge part in how both Samuel and Alexander are as human beings. Mm-hmm. And so I hope we get to that closet.
I suspect that Samuel sort of came around in his life because he spent more time away from his father earlier, than Colborn, than Xander.
The other question was about Lockhart. Why does Charles Lockhart return?
And I think you've probably already picked up from our conversations and from the previews, he's coming to sue her for her inheritance because he's the white relative. She's not. And he lost in Antigua, but now he's going to try in England. Well, in Sanditon. Well, I don't know if it'll actually be in Sanditon or somewhere else in England, but he's suing in England. So that'll be interesting to see where they actually have that court case. Who knows where that'll be. But it's definitely a very official looking courtroom, something bigger than you would expect to be in Sanditon. So I suspect it will be further away.
Yeah, probably London is what my assumption is.
Yeah.
But I think that A, he's a man, Georgiana's a woman. B, he's white, Georgiana's black. And C, men are just given the inheritance as a direct, at that time, inheritance didn't generally pass to the female unless they were the only relative. And direct, it had to be direct. So she was the daughter, but she was sort of the bastard daughter of.
Although obviously there was a document, there was a will where she was giving the inheritance.
Her father recognized her as his daughter. He was in love with her mother. So it wasn't like it was just the child out of wedlock. It was, he recognized her and he gave his inheritance to Georgiana. He chose that in his will to give it to Georgiana. So Lockhart is going to contest that aspect based off of the fact that he's white, she's black, he's a man, she's a woman.
Right. And especially now that Sydney isn't around as the guardian to speak on her behalf.
Exactly. So he thinks Lockhart's going to think that Georgiana is vulnerable and that he can do whatever because no one's going to protect her. But I think he's going to find the entire Parker clan and almost all of Sanditon is there to protect her. But I have not rewatched season 1 since season 2 came up because, that was when I was going through chemo and mastectomy and all that stuff. So I didn't rewatch season 1 post season 2. And I haven't been able to rewatch season 2 yet because of all the cancer treatments. And I just haven't been able to get there. I'm going to try to do that. But the one scene I have rewatched and I've rewound it is that scene where Georgiana confronts Lockhart, and there's Mary, and I'm getting emotional thinking about it, but there's Mary and there's Tom and there's Arthur, and they're like, she has family.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I love that. I love that so much.
And Arthur says that tells her, you're an honorary Parker.
Yes.
So
100% she is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why Lockhart returns. Elaine Hunter says, I saw season 1, so Charlotte is a ghost of her real self. Now she gets to watch Colburn live the life she had challenged him to live. He now has a wonderful, made me a little weepy relationship with the girls. Mrs. Wheatley and the girls are shipping Hayborn big time, and he is socializing. How poignant is it that she is left out of the Hayrick Park Renaissance? I don't think she may feel left out, but I don't think she is. I think she was, physically, yes, because she wasn't physically present, but I think they all had her at top of mind while they were going through this, because she was the reason ultimately that they did it in the first place. She altered all of them so much that they did this thinking of her, and they did this because of her. So she is the direct reason for the Hayrick Park Renaissance. I like that she called it that. I like that. I'm going to start calling it that now. But so she's there in spirit. And I think that she is, as she begins to watch how they've altered, how they've grown, how they've been made better, she's going to see that the influence she did have. I mean, Charlotte doesn't think incredibly highly of herself. She doesn't think poorly of herself necessarily, but she's not egotistical. So she's not going to think, oh, I did this. But she's smart though. And she's going to see, oh, look he did do that. I'm glad she did do that. And so I think that she's going to feel I think we'll be surprised, maybe not surprised, but I think we'll be, my words are failing me. I think that we will be glad to see that Charlotte will pick up on the ways that they've grown, and be reminded of things that she told him, that she reminded them, that she coached them, that she taught them to do. So I think that I think at first she'll be upset, but I think that's going to be more the fact of awkwardness of, I love this man, I feel rejected by him, and now he's here and I have my fiance. I think that's where her focus is going to be most on that, rather than I'm not with him and they've grown. So I think that
I do think, yeah. So when she says she's a ghost of her former self, and you see that already when she announces that
at the end of season 2,
they're getting married, they're to be married, and she, she's just trying to not feel anything, is what the impression you get.
Well, I think we kind of see that throughout all of season 2, though, because she was already depressed, being set apart from Sydney, being set up for, yes, I'm going to marry you. And then, oh no, I can't marry you. And so she was living in sadness. And then when Mary came and told her he died, she was living in grief. So through that grief, she was kind of a former shadow of herself, which is why she said, I'm going to make my own way. I'm going to be a governess. I'm never going to be married.
Well, right. But I do think she, lightened up and put her focus on the girls and put her focus on her sister. And so she was still doing what Charlotte does, helps others.
Yeah.
It's interesting that Ben talked about the fact that he thinks that Colburn learns more from Charlotte than the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
And that he felt the same way about working with Rose.
Yeah.
So interesting.
And I think the reason why I see her as just being a shadow of herself throughout all of season 2 is because all of season 2, we watched her have to live with and deal with and function through grief. And I think we had to see that. So I think they had to. So for me, that's what all of season, even though she was trying to do, she did do the things that Charlotte is used to doing, and she did smile and she did laugh. I think that the whole season living with grief made her that way.
Oh, I agree. But now she's had a double whammy, both Sydney and Colburn.
Yeah.
So when they say she's a shell of herself, that person was talking about, she's seen episode 1.
Yeah.
Of season 3. So interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and I mean, we could kind of tell that from like you said, to start this off with, we could tell that from the end of season 2 when she said, I'm engaged to Ralph. I mean, she was clearly hollow when she said that. She was not. I mean, so I think we all kind of expect her to come on and just be like, okay, I'm going to go through the motions.
Yeah.
Just gonna power through.
I'm just gonna quit fighting the, she's been rowing upstream and now she's giving in to what her father wants, what Ralph wants, because it's easier and she can protect herself.
I think that's the biggest key right there is I think she thinks she's protecting herself, where I don't love him, so there's no way I'm really going to get hurt, but then I will never have to fall into this love thing again if I get married. So
which then is so ironic that the little scene that they show of Leonora saying love is a dastardly thing, is what she says anyway.
Beastly. It's a beastly business.
Beastly. It's a beastly business. That is so funny. And the look on Colburn's face and Samuel's face in the background is
even Mrs. Wheatley. Is it Mrs. Wheatley in that scene too?
And she's there too. Yeah. It's like, okay, she's all of like 10 or 11 and she has no idea what's coming.
And the other reason I love that scene is because it shows you just how far Alexander has come with his kids, that he's having these kind of conversations with Leo.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
I can definitely see why Justin said at the beginning of season 2, how much if he was to continue on the series, it would be with those two characters.
Yes. I'm still sad we're not going to go on with them, but that's okay.
What?
So I'm still sad that we aren't going to go on with Augusta and Leo, because how interesting would that be?
Well, we'll just have to pay attention to their careers in the future.
Yes.
Yeah.
The next question is from Valerie Nance. Why have Samuel and Alexander been estranged for 10 years? We will find that out, but that's where we're going to find out if Samuel's older or younger. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting that he's actually older, because the inheritance could be a reason they haven't spoken for 10 years. So I think that's where the theory is coming in, that he's older. So we don't know yet, but I think it has something to do with the inheritance. And the way that their father, I think it's going to be the father-son dynamic between that triangle there is the reason they haven't spoken for 10 years. That's my assumption. Do you have a different theory?
I think Colburn was probably, yes, I agree. And I think Colburn was probably Alexander was the son that was more compliant, went along with things, and Samuel was not.
For sure.
He stood up to his father, and so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
So is that the end of the questions we have on
no.
Okay.
Diane Byers says odds that both Georgiana and Charlotte end up as happy single women. I don't think they're very high on either of those fronts. It's a Jane Austen trope. So
exactly, this is still Jane Austen. Yeah. So
it's it's Jane Austen inspired for sure. And I think that they're gonna, especially, and here's the main reason why, not just because it's Jane Austen trope, but because season 1 left with no one happy single, there's not a chance that they're going to leave us with an end where again they're single. Like there was an uproar, a riot almost every day. There's no way they're going to leave it that way. I don't think they are cruel enough to do that. I really don't.
I think they'll both get happily ever afters. And now that we know that Otis is coming back, I really think, from that too, because
there's no way they'd bring him back and not leave them up.
And it's very Jane Austen like to tie up all their little relationships in bows.
Exactly. Like even in the end of Pride and Prejudice, she wrote what was going on with Lydia and Wickham after they got married. She completes her stories but leaves room for growth. And I think that's what they're going to do.
Right.
Kristen Joyner says you should talk about the scene from the episode 1 that PBS shared.
We haven't seen it yet.
They shared
PBS,
a scene
only if you went to, like some of the PBSs around the country had previews, not mine and not yours. So some people have seen episode 1.
Yeah, but she said it's just a scene from episode 1. It's not
on the previews, which there's several. A lot of them are clipped. They're not whole scenes.
I'm gonna look that up too, because I didn't know about the Spanish poster. It's on Masterpiece.
It's one of the videos that they released early.
No, I have not seen this one, and I looked at all of them last week.
Really?
I'm gonna share my screen with you.
Why'd you ask for questions so we could get information? This is the one for her birthday, I think.
I didn't see this.
Okay, hit play. No. Oh, I haven't seen this either.
Oh,
Ralph.
I'm fine.
The first rule of Snapdragon, Mr. Starling, hesitation is fatal.
Charlotte's always been a demon at it.
Clearly, I will have to practice.
So as you have seen, my dear, Sanditon is now the place to be seen. I can only think Brighton and London are quite empty. And if we weren't already on the map, Georgiana's party would certainly announce our arrival.
I am determined it shall be the grandest event this town has ever seen.
I want to mark my coming of age with style, to announce myself to society.
I only hope you don't spend your entire inheritance in one evening.
We plan to build an indoor pleasure garden for our guests, Miss Heywood.
Heavens!
Yeah, and what guests they are. Not only Her Grace, the Lady Montrose, and her son, the Duke of Buckinghamshire, but we await the arrival of your friend, Lady Susan de Clermont.
I shall be so pleased to see her again.
Lady de Clermont.
Yes, they met at a masked ball in London. Did you not, my dear?
When were you in London, Charlotte?
She and the late Mr. Parker journeyed there for my benefit.
It is a long story.
So this, they must have just posted this. I mean, I was on the PBS Amazon, the one you get through Amazon, just last night looking for something. So this must have just come on. Wow.
There's so much in there.
there is a lot in there. Well, I don't know that little game they were playing with the artificial fire, but
it was Snapdragon.
I don't know this game.
I think they're little raisins that are in the fire, and you gotta grab one out.
Have you heard of this before?
Yeah, I think it's been in a couple of. I don't know if it's been in Jane Austen's books or some of the movie adaptations of her books.
Oh, I don't.
But that's the only way. That's the only way I know about it. I don't know much about it. That's what my memory is saying. That I think there's like alcohol in there, and then they light that on fire, and then you have to go in and grab the
like brandy.
Yeah,
probably. Wow, interesting.
So,
well,
the first thing that's interesting is Charlotte. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, run to the PBS Masterpiece website right now. You're going to get this on, you're going to hear this on Sunday, right? The day it's out. I'll put something in the group too. But there is a free scene from episode 1 of season 3 that you need to go watch. And that's what we're discussing right now. It's just a little scene where it's Mary, Arthur, Tom, I wanted to call him Chris, Mary, Arthur, Tom, Georgiana, Ralph, and Charlotte in a little dining room, which I assume is at Trafalgar House, playing Snapdragon. And Charlotte goes in, no hesitation, no fear. She has her hand in the same fire that Ralph does, and comes out fine, no hurt. And Ralph, instantly Charlotte has to be, oh, Ralph, I'm sorry. And he's sucking on his finger like he's hurt. So already you see like there's a very difference in personality there, difference in courageousness, maybe a little bit, I think.
Character.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So this parlor game called Snapdragon was also known as Flapdragon, and it was popular from about the 16th century. Never heard of it.
The other thing
Live and learn.
The other thing I noticed is that Ralph really has no idea about Charlotte's life other than outside of why can't I think of Willingdon? Jeez Louise. I have got to rewatch this whole thing. My memory is just like shot. But he knows nothing of her outside of Willingdon. That means that he knows nothing of her character. He knows nothing of her desires. He knows nothing of who she is or what she really wants. It really is just, she's a nice girl from a good family and a pretty face.
And they've known each other for a long time.
Her entire life, right?
Yeah. So he sees her as just what he knew and nothing beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
And she obviously hasn't shared much of this. But you can see how much fun she's having being with Tom and Mary and Arthur. It's and obvious Georgiana, and Georgiana. And she doesn't want to get into that whole story right then, obviously.
I don't think she ever does. Because if she does, she's going to have to be honest with Ralph about Sydney, because that's just Charlotte's character. She's not going to, she might share snippets, but largely her time in London, even her relationship with Lady Susan is directly tied to Sydney. So
Right.
she
Yeah.
can't share that with him
But-
without talking
but-
about Sydney. And I don't think she wants him to know about Sydney.
Well, I mean, he's passed away, but
I don't think it matters.
Probably she doesn't want to. I would doubt that it's so much that she doesn't want him to know about Sydney as she doesn't want to. It'll just bring up so much emotion to tell the story. So, like, if somebody else told him about who Sydney was, and in a delicate way, that I don't think she would mind. But for it, like, if it was out there as, well, she was maybe not the whole truth of their relationship, but it would be like Georgiana. Well, he was Georgiana's guardian, and it was in a brother to the Parkers, was part of the Parker family. If it was told that way, she may not want him to know the depth of her feelings for him.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean when I say she doesn't want him to know about Sydney, is because she does not want him to know that she was in love with Sydney. If he were to know about Sydney, if he were to know how deeply she was impacted by his lot, because I think that he would ask Charlotte about Sydney. And I don't think Charlotte would be able to hide her feelings about Sydney if she were to talk about him, because I don't think she is over Sydney. And she's obviously not over Colburn, because Ralph is the reason that Colburn is the reason she's engaged to Ralph. So she's clearly not over that relationship, as little as it was. There was obviously more substance to the one she had with Sydney. But I think that's what I mean when I say she doesn't want him to know about Sydney. She doesn't want to have to be put in a position where she has to describe the depth of her feelings for Sydney, and where she has to describe what happened, or even relay the information of, we were close, we had this kind of relationship, this is who we were to each other. I don't think she wants to be put in that position, and it's just easier to not let him know about Sydney than have to possibly explain that to him.
Right. No, I think you're entirely right. But
Lady Susan's going to rock his world, though. Because I don't think Lady Susan's going to care about that at all.
No, it's going to be, I'm more excited than ever. That I'm sure that scene is obviously from episode 1, because they've come back into town probably for Georgiana's birthday party, and
the birthday clearly hasn't happened yet.
Right. Yeah, because the ball hasn't happened. At least that part hasn't happened.
Well, they're also discussing what her party's going to be like. Georgiana says she wants to use her party to announce herself to society, which is interesting because typically you would be, what is the right wording for that they would use? Introduced to society by your guardian, or by your father, or by your family. And her guardian is obviously no longer here. And so she's going to do it on her own, in her own money, in her own fashion. She's going to introduce herself to society. And I love that imagery, that she's coming out as an independent, saying, I am my own person, and I am introducing myself. I don't need anybody else to introduce me.
Right. And now we have to wait 24 hours for this.
And then Arthur, I found it interesting. Arthur also said, we are turning our house into a pleasure garden. He used the term we and our when referencing him and Georgiana.
Did he say house?
I thought he said house.
We'll have to.
He might not have said house. But he was talking about their house. But it was indicated that he could have been talking about all of the Parker's house. But I felt more it was about him and Georgiana, where they were at.
Well, he said, we learned early on that she had taken an apartment. At the end of last season, she'd taken an apartment in Sanditon. But I assumed he had an apartment in Sanditon too, or unless he was still staying with Tom and Mary. I don't know.
So go watch that. I have to process it. I have to see now when I can't just watch a scene once to really describe it. I have to watch it about 1,000 times, and then I will accurately be able to describe it.
But thank you for sharing with us.
Yes, I appreciate that. Valerie Nance says, we've seen changes in the ways the characters are styled from season to season. This could be an entire episode. That's accurate. Charlotte, of course, has had significant changes in her life, and her styling really shows it. But Colburn, too, seems to be embracing more color in the season 3 trailers. I did notice that. And Augusta looks more mature and ladylike. We talked about that last week. While Leo now wears long pants in a few of the trailers and dresses in other scenes. Talked about that last week. Georgiana continues to wear more jewel tones and richer fabrics as the season goes on. And I think what I did notice in that preview the scene we just watched is there was intricate designs on all of her dress. Usually I feel like it was more detailed and almost like grown up, but it felt more
richer.
Yeah, something. I can't think
well,
of
when because I rewatched most of season 1 recently too, and definitely her dresses are completely different in season 2, and the previews I've seen of season 3, it's definitely more money spent on them, more color, more maturity, all of that kind of thing.
And the patterns that they choose for a specific reason. Like if you can find because I've read a couple, especially after season 1, interviews with the costumers and the costume designers, go read some of those, because they talk about, there's even a couple of videos that they put out where they're talking about why they chose the colors, why they chose the patterns, why they chose this. And there's always, in anything that you watch, there's always a reason behind the tones and the colors and the outfits that they chose. Valerie goes on to say, I know the frequency with which Charlotte wears her hair down is a big source of annoyance for those seeking more historical accuracy, but I think her hairstyles say a lot about how she's feeling, how free she feels to express herself. Yes, when we talked with Paula Byrne, I interviewed Paula Byrne a couple years ago, and I'll put a link to that interview in the bottom of this episode, but she and I talked about that, because she is I think she also was a script supervisor on season 2 and 3. I want to say, I don't know if that's it, but she was the literary historian to it.
She reviewed it.
So, yeah. So she was the one who was making sure Jane Austen's style and who she was represented accurately, and more so that the time period was represented accurately, because she is a historian. Like Paula Byrne, if you don't know who she is, please look into her, because she's phenomenal. She's a great human being, but she's written several books on Jane Austen. I have a couple of them, and she was the literary historian on season 1 and on season 2 and 3 as well. But we talked about that, and she said that when they would put her hair down, it was to signify how free she was and how happy she was. And when she had her hair up, it was to show a different side of her. So that is accurate. They did that on purpose.
And also, Paula wrote a book called Belle that was turned into a film.
That's right.
That is available on HBO Max right now. So I would highly encourage you to watch it. It's a true story about a Black woman who is an heiress.
Yes, I need to watch that. Every time I talk to you, I'm reminded of all the things that you told me I need to watch, and that I haven't watched it. Even the Sanditon book, which I finally bought a couple months ago, and I still haven't started reading it. Jeez.
Well, you're starting to feel a little better now, huh?
I am. Yes, I'll start getting into it. Kim Otterbeck. Now, this is a situation I will happily talk about. Do you think it could be a possibility that Edward could truly fall in love with Augusta, and she pushes him to the side, figuring out she does not love him? No.
I hope so.
No, Edward is not going to truly fall in love with Augusta. He doesn't love anybody but himself.
Yeah, I think he's a sociopath.
And then Catherine Begley says, I wish I thought otherwise, but in a series that creates opportunities for some characters to grow, like Georgiana, Sydney, Alexander, I presume, Clara, and Esther, I don't see that happening with Edward. And Judy Conklin, who now is my friend for life, says, frankly, I don't think Edward has a redeemable bone in his body. I see him as rotten to the core now and forever. But again, that is just my opinion. I just hope with all my heart that Augusta doesn't end up with that maggot.
Well, I'm sure she will not. I think she'll be rescued from him.
But I think we need to see him get what he deserves this season. Something has to be done. You can't continue to be bad and get worse and have no repercussions.
Yep.
Maybe Samuel stabs him. I don't know.
I don't think they'll do any violence.
No, but I kind of want it at this point.
Well, all because of it was bad enough how he treated Esther in season 1, but season 2 was just over the top.
Yeah, exactly. The Tessa Ewens, I think we already answered her question. She said, do you think Charlotte will marry? We've answered that. The last question we have on here looks like it's from Arwen. It says, what is Samuel and Lady Susan's relationship? We're not sure at this point. We won't know until we actually watch it to figure out, because we don't know anything concrete about Samuel other than what PBS has given us.
I think it's safe to assume that they're both members of London society.
Yes.
And
so they know of each other at the very least.
so I think he runs into Alexander in London, and they decide to come support Sanditon and come and visit.
Yeah.
And maybe he visits with Lady Susan, and she's like, oh yes, I have a good friend there, and something
I had
like
the
that.
impression from the previews, of course, we need to remember that previews and trailers, they think about these things and they edit these things. So they don't want us to figure out everything. So they edit these previews and these trailers so that we aren't entirely sure of what's happening, but we can get a general idea. But my impression from that is Alexander brings Samuel back when they run into each other in London or wherever they ran into each other. But again, that he could have already been in Sanditon, and that's where Alexander runs into him. I don't know, because I can't really tell where they're at. I just assumed it was London.
Well, in that scene we just saw, didn't Tom said that your friend Lady Susan is going to be here.
Yeah.
So
he said he's waiting for her to arrive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Arwen also says, will Charlotte realize how much Alexander may have wanted to protect her from him by letting her go at the end of season 2 due to lack of confidence and pride in himself? Will she be expected and not angry and sad about her behavior in the season 2 finale? I think if her and Colburn are going to be endgame, I think that she's going to have to realize what his intentions were by pulling back from her, because I think he's going to need to express those in order for, because Charlotte wants honesty. She deserves honesty. And so I think if they're going to make Alexander and Charlotte a happily ever after, they're going to need to address that.
Oh, absolutely.
Why he pulled back. So I think, yeah.
But did they just say, was that question or that statement about her behavior as opposed to his behavior?
She said her behavior at the end of season 2. I think she meant by being engaged to Ralph.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. But between her and Colburn, it was his behavior was the issue. I'm sure she's not going to go back to being a governess. I can tell you that much.
No. All right. We just have 2 more. Christy Mass says, rewatching season 1 this week, I realized how changed Charlotte is. So bright-eyed and ready for adventure. Season 2, she seems to be giving up. And I really hadn't seen that before, that clearly. I think someone previously mentioned a broken spirit. Yeah, we kind of addressed that with her grief. That's kind of how she was operating, and she was learning. And I don't think she ever experienced grief like that. So she was learning how to live through grief. Valerie Nance has the last 2 questions. Her first one is, how exactly did Charlotte come to her decision to accept Ralph's proposal? What do you think the circumstances of that were? I think that'd be fun to theorize about. I think she went back home and he was there and she was like, okay.
And I think also her father was pushing her in that direction.
I think he probably was a little bit for certain when she came back defeated again.
Yeah.
She did say, did her dad force the issue when she came back from Sanditon? Was it I am 4 and 20. I'm a burden to my parents. I am frightened decision born out of desperation and pragmatism. I don't think it was born out of desperation other than to maybe protect herself, but not out of I'm too old.
It was expected, and I think she just finally gave in to it.
Yeah. And I think she saw a solution to, because I mean, the last thing we saw her say in Sanditon that Alexander was enough. And she went back to Willingdon with that determination of enough. I'm not doing this again. The last question we have is how, and I'm sorry if you post on this afterwards, this is Janice and I you aren't going to see 2 hours of our conversation because there's breaks and we edit it, but we've been doing this for 2 hours. So this is going to be the last question we're going to do. Okay. So Judy says, I've wondered about that myself, about Samuel being older or younger. The only answer I can come up with is if there had been 2 estates involved. I don't think so. Because he's working as a lawyer, and we went into that already. So he wouldn't have inherited another estate. I do know that Samuel is a lawyer, so maybe he did not wish to be the master of an estate and give over his right to Alex. That sounds a bit lame, however, so we'll just have to wait and see how it is explained. And that's honestly, that's our answer to a lot of it. Is we're just gonna have to wait and see. Janice and I can theorize until we're blue in the face. But it's all just theory. It's all just ideas, things we'd like to see, things we hope to see, but that's all it is.
Speaking of that, yes. I want to just add that the 2 things I'm really hoping, or would like to see, or I'm wondering if we'll see, and one is there any more sea bathing, nude or otherwise? And when will we see a really great romantic scene like the rowing scene again?
Yes, we need more of the romance, the tension.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're missing. I think that was very, very much absent. I mean, they tried to do it with Georgiana and Lockhart, but it wasn't real romance. We always were skeptical of Lockhart because we were supposed to be. So we missed that actual real romantic tension. And I think we need that.
And even like when Esther and Lord Bamington went for that walk by the waterfall, we need some of those scenes.
Mm-hmm. Bring those to us.
See.
Do you have any theories of who will have those scenes?
Do I?
Yeah. What do you think?
Well, I think now that we think Otis is coming back, I think that could be. I also really hope that it's Colburn and Charlotte, but it also could be Sir Edward and Augusta.
See, but that wouldn't be real romantic tension because I honestly do not think Edward is capable of loving anybody. So that will be the same sort of situation as Georgiana and Lockhart.
He can play at it.
Yeah, but I don't want to watch him do that.
Well, of course, my first choice is the first two I named.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that we are ready officially to watch episode 1 of season 3 after a year and many discussions on everything we could possibly think of about season 2 and season 1. And as much as we can go into season 3 detail, we are now officially ready for season 3. So that airs tonight. If you are in the US, it airs tonight on PBS Masterpiece. You can watch it on Amazon. Why did I pronounce it like that? You can watch it on Amazon on the PBS Masterpiece subscription. You can get through there, or you can watch it on your local PBS affiliate. I believe it's at 8/9 Central. Nope. I always say that backwards. 9/8 Central for me.
It's 9 on the West Coast. I know that. I don't know when. I'm hoping that PBS online through Amazon will have it on East Coast time, which would be 6 o'clock. Have it available.
So
I'm going to watch it then.
Yeah. And I think it'll be the same because you'll be an hour ahead. So I think it'll be 9/8 Central or 9/8 for you because it's 9/8 Central here. Right. So it'll be 9 Eastern, 8 Central. It premieres on PBS Masterpiece if you have the local affiliate, or you can, I do hope that we can watch it much sooner on Amazon because that would that would just make me happy. So make sure you watch that.
We are going to be so excited to talk about this next week.
Yes. And so our next episode you will see from us will be a recap of season 3, episode 1 of Sanditon. Finally, make sure you check out our Facebook group, which is the Sanditon Chronicles Sanditon Family Fan Club. You can find us on our social medias, and do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please do that if you have not already. The more listeners we have, the more interviews I can get for you because they check to see how valid, I guess, we are, how many people are going to actually tune in to see the interviews. So make sure you subscribe to our channel on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on. And we are hoping to get you some interviews very soon. But until then, it will be nothing but recaps from us. So we'll see you next week for a recap. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Are you craving more TSC content? Head on over to our social media accounts. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and our Facebook group, the Sanditon Chronicles Sanditon Family Fan Club. Also, check out our website, thesanditonchronicles.com. Of course, we want to hear from you. We want to know what you want to hear and what your thoughts are. Email us at the.sanditonchronicles@gmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Tune in every week for new episodes.